Johnny, get your gun, get your gun, get your gun. Take it on the run, on the run, on the run. Hear them calling you.
Welcome back to Frontline Rejects. Before we get started today, we'd appreciate it if you could help us out by hitting that like and subscribe button and by dropping a comment in the comment section below. And if you'd like to reach out to us directly, send us an email at frontlinerejects@gmail.com.
The bullet we'll be testing today is Hornady's new CX all-copper projectile. This is our third test with this bullet, and today we've got the 30 caliber 165 grain offering loaded up in 30-06 to somewhere a little over 2,800 feet per second. We recently completed a test of this bullet in 6mm arc, and we were very happy with the results. If you haven't already seen that video, I highly recommend you check it out, and you can find a link to it in the video description below. Anyway, we're really pumped to see how the CX is going to perform today, and we hope you are as well. So let's get started.
Here to show up, Carl?
What's up?
You here to show up?
I hope so.
I hope so too.
Bit of an awkward shooting position, but
Yeah, a little bit of a sharp angle.
should probably reload.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah.
Hey!
That felt good.
Yeah, it looks good.
All right, man. Hornady's new bullet.
Yeah.
New-ish. I mean, you know, we're a little bit behind the curve.
I think you're going to perform a little better than that 130 grain 308 we did.
110, you mean?
110.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Those were smoking.
Look good.
Sweet. All right, so I got to hold right.
Yeah, hold right. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
As the pros say, just a C hair.
Do they?
Yeah,
Oh,
for
okay.
sure else, yeah.
Wow, I learn something new every day. I've never heard that lingo before. What's it mean?
Means, you know, I'm gonna keep this PG-13 and not explain that one.
Oh, okay.
Feel good?
Yeah.
You know, coming from Seattle, I almost forgot what the sun felt like.
Yeah, me too.
Good shot.
That felt really good.
Yeah. All right, ready, Freddy?
400 yards. 30-06 Hornady CX.
Woo! Let me get a yee!
Yee.
Oh. That's all you got?
Yep. This is our third test with Hornady's CX, and I am really digging the results we're starting to get. If you haven't seen either of our previous tests, check this video's description and you'll find links there. Estimated impact velocities today were provided using Hornady's 4DOF ballistics calculator. Getting into the 100, we have beautiful expansion. The bullet opened up evenly on all sides, and we've got a little bit of fuzz trapped in petals from one of our towel baffles. 200 is the only range we had any goofy stuff going on at. The bullet impacted our tray a bit crooked and skimmed along the inside side of a 2x6 sidewall. As we'll see on our graphs though, it still did open up decently wide. The 300 mark is similar to the 100, very even expansion, which ends just above the bottom relief groove. At 400, peeling ends visibly higher up the shank than the 3. We've got a little bit more fuzz in the pedals, but still a more than acceptable result. 500 is extremely similar to the 4, very even expansion, ending around the same spot as we drop down to an estimated impact velocity a hair over 2,000 feet per second. Now, time to get into the weeds. We'll take a look at our graphs, and expansion at the closer ranges exceeds 2 times original size, decreasing to around 1.7 at the 4 and 500 yard marks. Weight retention is extremely consistent, minus the 200, which is where our projectile came into some contact with wood and lost a few petals. Overall, we end up with average expansion of 1.88 times original size and average weight retention of 98.01%. These are pretty great results considering that as an all copper projectile, this bullet is a pretty heavy choice for this chambering. When we're thinking about lead core bullets, most people commonly run somewhere in between 150 to 180 grains through their .6s. Of course, there are ballistics connoisseurs out there running 220 grain bowling balls, 55 grain Remington accelerators, and 32 ACP through their dirty 30s, but 150 to 180 grains is usually the most common. So 165 grain projectile isn't all that odd until we take into account that it's a solid copper pill. Monolithics tend to need velocity to expand well, and the conventional wisdom is if you don't have a cartridge that's a real throat burner, go lighter. For a 30-06, this means running something like a 130 or 110 grain copper bullet. When we ran Barnes's 130 grain TTSX through our 308, we chronoed it at 3178 feet per second, which is about 75 feet per second slower than what I developed with 130s in my .6. Average expansion came out to 1.79 times original size in the 308, so the CX, moving 200 feet per second slower at the muzzle, managed to expand wider on average. Now this makes sense when considering one of Hornady's design goals with the CX, which we touched on in our previous video when we ran the 80 grain CX through our 6mm arc. They sought to extend the range hunters could take ethical shots at with copper bullets and still expect good terminal ballistics. In that video, we came to the conclusion that they may have succeeded at doing that, and I think this test further demonstrates that. Hornady's matched an intelligent bullet design with modern materials science in the form of an alloy which in previous testing expands well even down sub 1500 feet per second. It also does this while in most cases retaining much higher than their stated 95% weight retention. In fact, the average weight of our recovered projectiles is extremely similar to that of Barnes's TTSX and Nosler's E-tip. What is also very neat is that because of the expansion capability of this bullet, shooters can run comparably weighted bullets to their normal lead core projectiles. So if you're going into a geographical region which requires that you shoot copper, you could switch from your normal 165 grain lead core bullet to a 165 grain CX and expect roughly the same drop compensations as what you're used to, which I think is a very valuable benefit considering the traveling hunter may not always have time to extensively work up a new dope, which they would need to if they switched to a drastically different weight when going from lead to copper. The downside to this is because copper is so much less dense than lead that comparably weighted monolithics are much longer. This becomes an issue if we're dealing with standard seating depths in that it may restrict the case capacity a hand loader has to work with. Of course, the discerning loader using carefully selected modern powders can work around this, it just takes some tweaking. One concern I have about the CX is how it performs at extremely high velocities. With any choice in life, there's always a trade-off. It's up to the individual making the choice to decide whether or not whatever that trade-off is worth the perceived benefit. When we ran 110 grain CXs in 308 at 3,500-ish feet per second, it violently tore itself to shreds at almost every range. We did address in that video there's a good chance the 308 diameter 110 CXs were probably designed for something like 300 blackout, and as such are meant to be run at much lower velocities. So hopefully that test was just a fluke. The only way to find out though is more testing, and we'll be sourcing 130s for use in our 270 Win short mag, which we should be able to push at around 3350-ish at the muzzle. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that test and many more we've got lined up. If you've got something out of today's content, consider liking and commenting on this video. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.